You're all back there. Well, that's all right. So I want to ask you a question. You want to be a professional speaker, or you want to improve your speaking skills, right? I want you to imagine you're going to give a presentation. Now, a couple of you can use the presentations you did today, or if you've got a presentation coming up, but I want you to get in mind a speech, a presentation you're going to give. And so the first thing I want you to do in your mind is have an idea of the genre. Speech to inform, to sell something, to persuade, a motivation. Okay, and you can write it down. In fact, it would help if you did. So the genre, and then I want you to write either the title or in your mind, in 1 or 2 sentences, what do you want to communicate to the audience? Okay? So take a minute, get that firmly entrenched in your mind. What do you want to communicate to the audience in that presentation? All right, so here's the first question then that I present to you. What's one important goal that you have for your audience? So in that presentation, what's one important thing that you want your audience to walk away with? You got that? Got to get your mind? Now here's the first question then in relationship to that question. Can you measure the results? Can you measure the results to tell if your audience got it? Now the second question is, what's one important thing you want to accomplish from that presentation? What do you want to accomplish? And then also, just as the first, how would you measure the results? So I ask these questions to kind of get us looking at the idea that if we're doing a presentation, we've got certain ideas, certain things that we want to communicate, but we also want the audience to walk away with something. So I've learned over the years, one of my little mantras, it doesn't matter how much I give the audience, it only matters what they take away. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Only thing that matters. Now, how do we determine how successful we are as a speaker? So if you're a professional speaker like Kara, then there's certain guidelines. But if you're not, we still want to know if we're doing well. So you have evaluations and what have you, but what are some of the physical manifestations that tell you you're doing well? Anybody? Barbara?
People are paying attention.
They pay attention while you're talking. Okay. What else?
Maybe have questions at the end.
Okay, so they ask questions at the opportunity. What else? Yes, Ed.
The response at the end, applause.
Okay, how enthusiastic they are. Okay. How about if you're doing a future presentation, people are interested and want to know about it? Another effective way that I wouldn't suggest you try and find out because you won't be happy with results is ask people 2 months or 1 month after you've done the presentation and you meet talking to them, ask them, do you remember what I said? And then there's a final way that I have found to be very effective. If you're doing a solo presentation and beginning to end, is after the presentation is over, how many people stay afterwards and talk about the information? That's a critical factor. For one thing, it's measurable. Now, so an event happened a couple years ago. My wife and I attended a program put on by Landmark Education. And it was an interesting program. So here's how it went. They had a room, in fact, about this size, but shaped a little different. So they had a podium, and this is where the presenter was. And then they had this chair circled in kind of a semicircle. And in the middle, to begin with, in the first section, were the men, and the women were on the perimeter. And the speaker stood up here and would ask a question about women, marriage, love, sex. And then men would volunteer and they would stand up and share their response to that question. Boom, boom, boom. Did that for 30 minutes. Took a 10-minute break. Then the women sat in the middle and the men sat on the perimeter. And then the presenter would ask a question and then the women would stand up and she'd take like 6 or 7 responses, then go to the next question, the next question. Did that for 30 minutes. We then broke up into groups for about 20, 25 minutes. And then as we broke into groups, she said, here's a couple of questions I'd like you to discuss. So we have these little groups, 5 or 6 people, and there was probably 60 people in the room. And then it was over. That was the program. Now, that night, something very special happened for me. I was in such a state of joy and euphoria. I didn't want it to end. And so I stayed around with a bunch of other people, and when my wife finally came up, because she'd been talking to people and said, well, honey, we got to go, I was disappointed. I wasn't done talking. And I would say 80% of the people in the room were in the same emotional state. There's nobody left. Now, I walked away from there really kind of mystified. But you know how you put some things in the back of your brain and you just let it seethe around? I would say it took a year before I began to kind of put together kind of what do you say, an image of what happened, a kind of a sense or an understanding. I would think about workshops and seminars and everything I'd ever seen or heard or in the past or what was going on when people were presenting. What caused that emotional response? And the second thing was, what did I learn? Because you see, a year later, and even today, I can't tell you a single thing that was said. I can't tell you a single thing that was said in the group. I can't tell you what I said that whole evening. I don't remember any of it, but I remember the evening. I remember the emotional impact. And so I'm wondering, did I learn something? So I'm going to kind of consolidate a lot of things into the, what you say, the final core of what it meant and what I got out of it. And you can take it for what it means to you. In a longer time period, you would participate in this discussion. Because you see, it doesn't matter what I got, it only matters what you get. So I want you to consider the science behind that evening. And there is a science, as you all know, there's a tremendous amount of research that's been done on the brain, on humans, on groups, and all this interaction. So to kind of understand what happened, I want you to imagine you're going out at night. If you're single, you're going on a date. If you've got a partner, you're going out with another couple, and you're really interested and looking forward to going because you know these people or you know this person, you know you like them, you know you're going to have a good time. So you go and you're eating and you're drinking and you're talking and you're laughing, and at some point in the evening, you become aware how good you feel inside. How many of you have experienced that? Not everybody. Well, you're missing out if you haven't. Because it's an awesome feeling. Now, in the brain research that's been done, what they found is that in those times, what you're experiencing are what are called neurotransmitters, which are chemicals the brain produces that either inhibits certain feelings or it enhances other feelings. But there's a whole range, like 30 or 40 different chemicals that our brain produces. And in the process, in that kind of a situation where you're in communication or relationship with people, you like them, you're having fun, and you feel this sense of joy, I found there are 4 things that need to exist. And here's the exciting thing. that I discovered, you can create those in almost any public gathering if the size and the environment is correct. You could have a workshop and create the exact same emotions, but it's not always what you want to do. In fact, there's very limited, like today, I couldn't do it, right? There isn't time. So in the right circumstance, in the right situation, it can create an experience that's unlike any other experience. So what are the 4 ingredients? First, a sense of acceptance and desire. A feeling, not a sense. A feeling of acceptance and desire. So you're in a situation with a group, and there's talking going on, and you feel that you're accepted by them. And the desire, I use it as a part of acceptance because if we put desire separate, we have such a connotation with the word desire that it distracts from it. So when I say desire, if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm really excited talking to you and I sense that you really enjoy talking to me, then I make the assumption you want to talk to me, right? We do that. And I know I want to talk to you. So that wanting is the desire. So when that desire is there and you accept me, and I sense you really do accept me at the basic core, then another factor comes in, and that's the second ingredient, trust. A deep mutual trust. Now, when you have that in a communication between people, then you've got the basis for building something really special. The third element that needs to be present is a belief that the person is receiving something of significant value. Now, in the dinner scenario, what's of significant value? Just being there. The pleasure of being with friends. People or somebody you really enjoy. So that significant value is essential to have the total effect. And then the fourth thing, and this was brand new to me. I had never thought about this before. But in listening to all the research and just books and tapes about what they're learning in terms of human beings, the fourth element that needs to be present is the person needs to believe that they have a degree of control in that situation. That control is what's present and was present that night. So let me talk just a minute about that. So what does it mean to be in control? If you're in a workshop and somebody's leading it, how am I in control? In the right, and I say right, I hate to use that word, in the type of situation that we're going to discuss, I have control because I can choose what I want to learn. I can choose where I put my emphasis. I get to participate because I can contribute in my communications. I know I'm heard, and then I receive information that's of value to me. So there's this interchange. And when I'm in control, how much more pleasurable is that versus if I'm just receiving? Is that true for you?
Yes.
So there's the four ingredients. First, a feeling of acceptance and desire. Second, a deep mutual trust. Third, a belief that we're receiving something of significant value, tangible or intangible, okay? And the intangible is what we're really talking about, because we're talking about information, knowledge. And fourth, a belief that we're in control in terms of what we receive and choose. So now I want to just kind of look at what that looks like, the structure. How do you create it? And we're going to look at, and really kind of focus too on some of the disadvantages of this type of program. So I don't want to make it in any way sound like this is a panacea for presenting, because it isn't. In fact, there's probably very few opportunities that you can take this approach totally and carry it through to the end because of all the limitations and expectations that are upon us. So the goal, let me give you the goal of this type of presentation. And this is where the whole thing turns around from a standard presentation. To create an atmosphere in which people feel comfortable talking to each other. That's the goal. Period. To create an atmosphere in which people feel comfortable talking to each other. Now, right off the bat, what I saw with this is that means the speaker's not really in control of the whole program. See, and this is one of the, let's say, the challenges is that the audience, the participants, are exercising far more control in this kind of a program or presentation. But that's only the first part of the goal. The second part is, let me reread it, to create an atmosphere in which people feel comfortable talking to each other in the context of what the presenter wants them to learn. See, if you don't have the second part, then all you have is just a bunch of people having a social get-together. It's the second part that ties it in together, because in the second part, in the context of what you want them to learn, they are receiving something of value, we hope, and they're in control because they get to choose what's of value and what isn't. So that's the goal. But now, what's the structure? How do you structure a presentation like this? By presenting information strictly, pretty much strictly through interactive discussions and exercises where people are encouraged to use their past experiences and knowledge to form new conclusions relevant to their life. So, you put the information out there in a way, asking questions, doing, group sharing, doing a lot of exercises of different sorts, designed so that they look at the information and then how they can apply it to their life. See, that's what we did that night. The only difference was the information wasn't structured. But when people stood up, now I want you to picture, you're standing up in front of a group and you're sharing personal, intimate feelings about the other sex, and you feel comfortable, and you feel a sense of trust, because this is put on by Landmark Education, and they're very, very good at creating this sense of security, safety, that people feel confident opening up. So there's this sense of trust, this sense of being accepted, and you feel people want to be there. And then with the group participation, when we sat in groups and we discussed it, we began to integrate that knowledge into our lives by taking from our past experience and what other people are sharing, and that knowledge we then integrated into our unconscious. And that's when I realized that there's different ways that we learn. You see, the common way is what I call conscious integration. So if somebody, and I'll just use Kara as an example, gave us information so we could read it down, we could think about it, and consciously begin to say, okay, well, I could do this and I do that. And that's the standard way. We do that with most knowledge, I think. Well, no, it isn't true. I don't know. But the other way, and it happens all the time, is unconscious integration. And I'll give you an example where that can occur. You're talking to somebody, like for example, let's say you're talking to Luana, and she's sharing experience from her childhood, and you're listening to that and you're thinking, gosh, I had a situation like that. And then she shares something she did to overcome it. And you think, gosh, that would really be my sister had that problem. I wonder if, but then we think about our own life. And so I take that, what she did, and I apply it to myself. And I make a change in my life. And I'm not even aware of it. But it becomes a part of me. And I call that, I coined the phrase, just to distinguish, unconscious integration. Now here's the thing with this structure of a program that we're talking about. The goal is to create unconscious integration of the information you want them to assimilate. Now, there's a real problem. I thought about that. But then, how are they going to remember the speaker? I mean, I'm not even important anymore. See, and that's one of the things that I realized. If we look at the disadvantages of this approach, first of all, it's limited by time because you can get far less information. See, if you're going to allow people to absorb at their own rate and integrate it, you can't give them too much. Second, it only works with smaller groups. Now, I have seen a kind of mini version done with a large group where they have round tables at a meal type function. And I've seen people give each table something to work on. And so they have kind of like where they talk about it and they discuss it. And you can have some of the same elements, but it only works for that table and for a short time. And so it's possible to expand it. But one of the real limitations is if you're trying to develop a career as a professional speaker, you see, you're not using the skills and talents of speaking. You're using the science of human interaction to get the knowledge across. It really is a different way of approaching the whole thing. Now, I was excited about it and kind of bring this to a close because there just isn't enough time to really look at all the manifestations. But you're all professional, you're all intelligent, you can figure it out. You know, you can begin to explore it and look at where it works for you and doesn't work. What excited me about this is that my wife and I are working at developing a program I call micro-community events. And these are events with a limit of about 200 people. And the whole purpose of this event is to get people to feel comfortable talking to each other. And there will be food, cooking lessons, there will be music, dancing lessons, there will be games, but it will begin each evening with little workshops. And I wanted workshops that would make a difference. And then when I saw what had happened and began to get it together, I realized this is exactly what I was looking for. A workshop where you might get, let's say we have 200 people, and you get 20 or 30 people in this one, and 20 or 30 people in that one. And the whole purpose of the workshop is to create an atmosphere in which people feel comfortable talking to each other. Now you create that in the very first session, and then you put them out into a larger group where you begin to generate that. And what you have is what inspired me to even create this was, you seen those pictures in the Middle Ages where all the people are out in the street and they're having, talking and dancing, and it's like a great big community event? I thought, that's what we're missing. So one of the key things about this micro-community event is it's a no-tech event. Nada. You cannot avoid looking and talking to another human being. Because that's what we need. And I won't even go into all the science that shows why we need it and what it does and all the health benefits, because you know it. And if you don't, just look on the internet, and it doesn't take long to find out how important it is. It's being robbed from us. So I thought, we need a structure where it comes, and the only purpose we're there is to connect to other people. And then I saw that this type of a workshop, where you come for an hour, and you learn something that's significantly important in your life, and you're excited and feeling a sense of euphoria, talking and sharing with others. It's perfect. So I'm telling you this because I'm looking for people to do workshops for our micro community events in the future. And each one will be for a different audience. Like the first one I want to do is Seniors Night Out. And then I want to do one for maybe couples and different groups. So you've got the whole range of adulthood. So if I really want people who have workshops that, with information, who are willing to learn to do it under this format. And then, you know, you get paid for it, but the nice thing is this. If you develop a workshop, a format that's really good, it can be used at other workshops presented by other people, and you get a royalty on it. So there is a long-term incentive. Now, before I close, I want to ask, does this resonate with you? Not in terms of do you think it's a great idea, but do you understand the concept? Have I made that clear?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions or comments or any thoughts at all? Karen?
Oh, the beauty of getting a full day with people in the work that I do, the workshop, they're there from 9 to 4. I would have taken that speech and really made it about them. Okay, where have you not felt good enough? And I actually talk with a neighbor.
Yeah.
It's like, and at the end of the seminars, it's this like, oh gosh, we don't all want to leave. I don't want to leave because the benefit is mostly to the speaker. If you have this kind of unconscious learning happening that you're talking about, this unconscious integration is, because you said, well, is the speaker's role in it? I tell everybody there, I'm the one that benefits the most because I get to facilitate this thing. So it's
Right.
Beautiful.
It is. Thank you. Yeah, Luana?
I noticed when I do the workshops out there at the women's shelter that if you get them to engage where they're sharing experience, it makes the whole session go that much better. And they actually learn from one another, not just me, but from one another. And that makes a big difference.
I have found that some of the greatest learning occurs after the speaker stops speaking.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for coming, Karen. So any other comments or questions, or Leo?
I work at a senior center once a week. I'm considerably younger than most of the people. And I tell you, it is a ball. Those people are full of energy, and I love their experience, and they love interacting with the younger generation. So I applaud what you're doing. I'm part of it.
Great. That's awesome.
I'm willing to help with the couples part too, because that's what my husband and I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Well, thank you. I'll turn it over to our MC.